Hey everybody, Joe Wright here, talking about once again about the Schillinger system. I'm going to talk about the diatonic system of harmony. I'm going to read here some of the rules. Chord structures and chord progressions in the diatonic system of harmony have a definite interdependence. Chord structures develop in a direction opposite to their progressions. As the term diatonic implies, all pitch units of a given scale constitute both structures and progressions, without the use of any other pitch units, those not existing in the given scale whatsoever. All chord structures are the component parts of the entire structure, emphasizing all pitch units of a given scale in their first tonal expansion and in position A. What he means by that is, remember when we expanded the melody scale? The first expansion of that is, and that's how he comes up with the first expansion. In the same form, chord progressions derive from the same tonal expansion, but in position B. So if your melody is that's position A. In his previous chapter on geometrical inversions, if you flip that melody right over, it's basically played backwards. And that's position B. So in other words, if you have, that's position A. If you flip that over, you're going to have just backwards. That's why chord progressions are developed backwards. That's a system. I don't understand why, but I'm just the messenger. Transformations of S5. The main defect of existing theories of harmony is in the use of the descriptive method. Each case is analyzed apart from all other cases and without yielding any general underlying principles. But the mathematical treatment of this subject discloses the general properties of the positions and movements of the voices in terms of transformations of the chordal functions. In groups with three functions, known as three-part structures, A, B, and C, these functions behave through general forms of transformations and not through any musical specifications. As in this branch we are dealing with so-called four-part harmony, we have to define the meaning of this expression more precisely. Actually, this is really hybrid four-part, because what he uses in the beginning is he's just doubling the root. It's a constant root. Actually, in real four-part harmony, you're using like a seventh chord, so all the notes are different from each other. When an S5 constitutes a chord structure, the functions of the chord are the root, the third, the fifth. In their general form, they correspond to A, B, and C. In other words, A equals 1, B equals 3, and C equals 5. The base of such harmony is a constant root tone. In other words, constant 1 or constant A. Such groups have two fundamental transformations, clockwise and counterclockwise. Each of these transformations have two meanings. The first meaning is to be read. A is followed by B, B is followed by C, C is followed by A. Or if it's counterclockwise, A is followed by C, C is followed by B, and B is followed by A. The first meaning discloses the mechanism of the position of the chord, or the voice. You might say the voicing, like root, fifth, third. The second meaning to be read is the same thing. A is followed by B, so forth. And this constitutes the forms of voice leading. All right, here's another illustration of how this works. The different positions 1, 3, 5 can be attained by constructing the chordal functions downward from each phase of the transformations. So you have ABC. In clockwise, then you'd have BCA, CAB. Counterclockwise, ACB, CBA, BAC. Now let's put those in terms of numbers. 1, 3, 5, root, third, and fifth. In clockwise motion, it's 1, 3, 5, then 3, 5, 1, 5, 1, 3. In counterclockwise, it would be 1, 5, 3, 5, 3, 1, and 3, 1, 5. And right here describes the position of the chords. The root, the third, the fifth, the root. The third, the fifth, the root, the root. The fifth, the tonic, or root. The third, and the tonic. The root, third, fifth, tonic, and so forth. In other words, in clockwise motion, the chord is open. But in counterclockwise, the chord is closed. And you'll see this as we go on. Okay, this is voice leading. And I'm going to go through the tonal cycles, the C3, the C5, and C7. So, and remember on the C3 tonal cycles, chord progressions, it starts with C and goes down in thirds. So the first chord being C is going to move to an A minor chord. So going to go to an A minor chord. Okay. So in clockwise form, your root is going to go to the third of A minor, which would be C. So you keep the root, you keep the common tone. Now, the G, the fifth, is going to go to the root of the A chord, which would be A. So G goes to A, and then the third will go to the fifth. So E goes, again, you keep the common tone, because E's the fifth of A minor. And that's clockwise. Now in counterclockwise, the one goes to 5, the 5 goes to 3, and the 3 goes to 1. And here in the cycle of the third, it's not, the transformation is not so smooth. It's a bigger leap than in the clockwise motion. Now let's go to the cycle, cycle 5. You're going from a C chord to an F chord. So in clockwise, the 1 of the chord, C, goes to the third of an F chord, that's A. The fifth of the C chord, G, goes to the root of the next chord, which is F. And the third of C goes to the fifth of F, which is C. That's clockwise. In counterclockwise, here it's smoother. Then when you get to, let's go on to tonal cycle 3, C7, there's two ways you can do it. And you'll see that in the illustration as we point that out. On the clockwise, you have big leaps from one chord to the next. And, all the time, there's times when you don't necessarily want smooth voiceling. You may want a jump or a leap. But in this case, if you do counterclockwise of the C7, it is real smooth. Okay, this last illustration, thank God, we will go through all the tonal cycles and chord transformations. We will go through in clockwise and counterclockwise motion. So we'll go through the C3, C5, and C7. You'll be able to see and hear the effect. By the way, on some of the staves you'll see commas every now and then. That's just for a range readjustment, an octave adjustment, because it gets out of practical range. This is clockwise. This is counterclockwise. Cycle of the third. This is cycle of the fifth. Clockwise. Counterclockwise, cycle of the fifth. Cycle of the seven. Clockwise. And counterclockwise. That's it. Okay, I hope none of that was too complicated. I know it sounds a little complicated, but it really isn't. What he's showing you, the structures, is not really, you're not going to remember all this stuff. This is just showing you how it's done, how the system is put together, really. On the next lesson, we'll get into the symmetric system of harmony, which is different chord structures. In other words, you have the four major chords: major, minor, augmented, and diminished. Okay, will be the next lesson. Thanks, folks. See you later.